I am interviewing George Clifford Sorensen, and Sorensen is spelled Sorensen, and we are at his home at Withee, Wisconsin, in the village, and the date is November 10th. And I am Louise Rasmussen-Oshevsky. We will be talking about his life and their family and the Postal Service, the Lions, and his military service. George, would you tell us when and where you were born and about your early life?
I was born August 16th, 1921, on a little farm northwest of Withee in the town of Hickson.
And your parents were?
Axel and Anna Nee Madsen Sorensen.
Where did they come from?
Mother was born in Kilbourne, Wisconsin, which is now Wisconsin Dells, and my dad was born in Superior, Wisconsin.
Were they, their parents came from Denmark, I'm assuming?
No, my grandparents.
Your grandparents?
Both grandparents came from Denmark, but folks were local, in Wisconsin.
What did they do for a living here?
Well, my mother was a homemaker. She raised a family. My dad was a farmer and a politician. At one time he ran for county clerk, but he didn't make it, but come close. And then he ended up as a vice chairman of the state AAA committee.
Now, is that the AAA? Was that automobiles or conservation?
That was conservation, soil conservation.
And your mom?
She helped on the farm and raised a family. Was a gray lady, a member of the Nazareth Church and Ladies Society.
Yeah, she was very active at Nazareth Lutheran Church.
Oh, very active. She was in that kitchen every time something was going on.
Now, she was a gray lady where at?
The healthcare center, I believe.
Okay.
They used to meet.
It was called the county hospital at that time, but
yes.
Clark County Healthcare Center now. Do you have some other members, some other siblings in your family?
I had a sister, Alice, that was 3 years younger than I was, and my sister, Emily, that was 10 years younger. My sister, Alice, passed away, and Emily is presently at the health care in Marshfield.
Now, Alice married?
Einar Anderson.
Einar Anderson. Okay. Now, what grade school did you attend?
First grade I attended in White School.
I should have asked you where you lived when you were...
Well, I lived northwest of Withee in what is now the Oshevsky place on Bridge Road?
Bridge Road.
Bridge Road. And Wesley Sigelco was driving, at that time was horse and buggy for... There was one lady or girl that lived over the 2-mile limit, so he had to pick her up and bring her to school. And if I got down to the T by the time he'd come by, I'd get a ride too.
Now, do you remember any of your teachers or how many students were in school?
Well, the first grade, I think it was Dietzman. And as far as I can remember, they said he had 75 kids in the 8th grade. So when I left first grade, I couldn't even write my name.
Oh, so there would have been like 75 in the grades 1 through 8.
Yes.
I imagine he had to fire the stove up and do all the janitor stuff too. Where'd you go from there then?
In 1928, we moved to a farm in Frenchtown, which the Frenchtown school was right on our property, so I could walk home for lunch at noon.
Do you remember who your teacher was?
My second grade was
Dagmar?
Dagmar Rasmussen at that time, and that's now Christensen was. And she liked me so well, she kept me 2 years because I didn't know nothing in the first grade.
She wanted to be sure that you knew what you were doing before she sent you on.
She didn't like to hear about it either.
And where did you attend high school?
Withee High School, and graduated in 1940.
After you graduated, what did you do?
I worked on the local our farm until I enlisted in the Navy in September of 42.
And how long did you serve?
I served in the Naval Reserve for 3 years, 6 months, and 21 days.
Not that anyone's counting. You were on a ship. What did you do on the ship, and how long were you?
Well, the first ship I was on was the troop transport, the Chateau Thierry, and I worked in A Division. This means ice plant, machine shop. And on that one, I was mess cook for about 3 months. When you're first on, that's your duty. And after that, we took 2 trips to Africa with soldiers or army, and then we'd haul the battalion prisoners back to New York. And in must have been 43, we decommissioned that ship, and I went to Boston for 4 months and waited for a new cruiser, the USS Vincennes. We got aboard that in January of, must have been 44, I guess. And we went through the Panama Canal out in the Pacific. We sailed around that Pacific for 23 months without hitting a port.
You never had your feet on land then?
Well, one time on a coral island. It was only about a mile long and half a mile wide. We got to wade in the Pacific for a little while, but that's about all.
When you were on the ship, was there any propaganda type of information that was being sent by?
Oh, every day Tokyo Rose was on the radio. That's the only entertainment we had. And they played our regular music from the United States. She knew every move we made. One time we were going in the China Sea, and she said, USS Vincennes, you're never going to make it. It's all mined. But we had our minesweepers ahead of us, and we had no problem.
So that was quite an experience for a young man.
Oh, that got you thinking, I'll tell you.
Okay, after you left the service, what did you do?
Oh, I worked several jobs around locally and in Milwaukee. I went to Milwaukee School of Engineering and studied refrigeration of service for 6 months. I worked for a while at that, but I found out that I was getting the ditch digger's wages and doctor's hours. So I quit to work for Seaman Body.
Did you had practical farming experience? Did you attend a GI farmer's school also?
Oh yes, I think Claire Miller was my instructor. I worked at that for a couple of years. See, I went in the farm in 47, must have been 2 years, and then I was appointed rural carrier out of route to Withee.
Now, how did you happen to get appointed rural carrier? Did you apply for it, or how did you get appointed?
I applied for it and wrote a test, and was appointed by the then President Harry S. Truman.
And how long did you serve as a rural carrier?
30 years, 34 years, including my service time.
I'm sure rural carriers have a lot of experience, a lot of stories they can tell about articles that they carried. What kind of unusual things?
I should have written a book. Well, at those days, you know, there was I don't remember distinctly how many miles of blacktop, but it wasn't over 10, I don't think. And that was Highway 64 and T. T wasn't even done over 3 miles north of Withee, I don't believe, at that time. Because I can remember up by county line there was a mud hole that you couldn't even walk a horse through hardly.
What type of articles did you carry? Did you carry chicks or?
Don't let me remember that. Those chicks were the most unruly thing we had. They always were about 2 days old, and if it was hot, they stunk something awful. If you were lucky and had a car with a trunk, you could put them there. Otherwise, you had them inside. That was tremendous. And bees. And there was always bees hanging on the outside. To God, never, I don't know where they come from, but when they got in the car, they always got loose. I remember Harold Christensen, the other mail carrier, one time, he called up, he says, "Come and get them bees, they're all swarming around." Somebody had poked a hole in them and the bees were coming out.
That doesn't sound like it would be too much fun.
No.
You mentioned the roads were not that good. How about in the wintertime with snow?
Well, we had chains, double chains on, and you done a lot of shoveling, and a lot of getting pulled out. I remember I put the chains on and off 5 times in one day, because when you got to the cement or hard road, you had to take them off or you dry them out.
Did you always use a car, or did you use a sleigh?
No, I always used a car.
Okay.
And I didn't miss too many miles in 30 years.
They say the Pony Express, the mail must go through.
Yeah, it did. And my previous carrier, Percy Free, he had what they called a snowmobile. He had tracks on I think he had a Model T. No, Harold had a Model T. He had a Model A. They put tracks and skis on, and he'd just cut the fence and go right across the field.
I suppose whatever worked in the wintertime. Just if people wanted their mail, didn't care. Now, you've been telling us all about the things you did for working. What kind of things did you do for fun? What kind of recreation did they have at that time?
I guess maybe bowling. That's about all, I guess.
Did you fish?
Oh, yes. Fished, hunted.
What's the biggest fish you ever caught? Anything that's memorable?
Well, I got a prize for a 6 1/4 pound largemouth bass I caught up at Lake Holcomb. Got a fillet knife.
How about hunting? Any deer that was memorable?
8-point buck I got up by Brule. And I got quite a few deer. But in those days, when you were farming, you had to get up at 4:30, do the chores, and go hunting and hunt all day and come back home and do the chores. That wasn't too much fun.
Other than, were there dances and parties that were held in the neighborhood usually?
Well, the Frenchtown School was always, they had their meetings and basket socials and stuff like that. Not really dances. Well, I guess maybe they did have, but I was too little to remember that.
When you got a little older, did you go to Merry Old Gardens or some of?
Many times.
That's what people usually mention.
That's when they had the good orchestras.
Like who?
Dale Simons. I can't remember this far back.
Did you go up to Smith's barn up?
No, but I can remember though when we lived up on the first when I was first born up there that Smith's dance hall was a barn dance. What it was, and you could hear there was some guy that had a car with a cutout. He'd go up T just a barrel on it, and we could hear it clear up there, and we were half a mile away from T.
Do you recall the first radio, or when you had a radio?
I guess maybe in 27, my dad and Mr. Ruggles were in the business of installing and selling early radios. They had to go out in these ash swamps and cut long poles, and they used them for aerials. And when the Jack Dempsey and Tooney fight was, we listened at Ruggles' place with earphones. That's the first radio I heard.
Well, that's kind of interesting. Do you recall the first time that you voted and who you voted for?
That must have been Franklin Roosevelt, I guess. I was probably 18. That's as close as I can come.
Okay. Did you ever campaign for someone running for political office?
I campaigned for Merlin Hall for Congress, Johnson for Congress. Any Democrat running, I campaigned for.
So you would say that you're pretty much a Democrat then?
Yeah, I guess so.
How about your first car ride? Your first car. What kind of a car did you have?
That I owned?
Yes.
Oh, when I come out of service, of course, cars were very hard to get. So I guess I bought a 35 Dodge that had no motor in it, a Plymouth, and I bought a pickup truck that had a pretty good Dodge motor in it, and we put the Dodge motor in the 35 Plymouth because it had a good body.
And so you had a car then?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
For a while.
How about first train ride?
When I enlisted in the Navy in 42, we had to go to Wausau to get on a train to go to Camp Green Bay at Waukegan. And I still remember they went 110 miles an hour, and that was the first train ride I had. I didn't know if I liked that or not.
Have you, how about an airplane?
Well, my wife and I, when we were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary, got on a plane in Minneapolis and flew to Hawaii. First time.
That would have been in 1978?
You shouldn't use your arithmetic.
Approximately.
Yeah.
And
we were over there for 10 days and went to 4 different islands. And I remember it cost us $800 apiece.
That was pretty cheap. Probably
Yeah.
then it wasn't. How about electricity? Do you remember when electricity came into this area?
As far as I can remember, it must have been around 1937.
Did you have electricity at your farm before that with a
We had
generator or something?
We had a what they called they had a bunch of batteries, and we had a charger that charged the batteries, but that didn't last too long. That was during the Depression, and something went wrong and they couldn't afford to get it fixed. So we went back to lanterns.
During that era, when someone was sick, were there preventions or cures for different illnesses? Some home remedies that you recall? If you had a cold, for instance, what would your mother do?
I remember Mother would make a syrup of lemons, and I don't know what else was in it, but it was pretty good, and it seemed to help the throat.
Did she use Vicks mentholatum?
Oh yes, and there was something else she put that I hated. It was some kind of a plaster.
Mustard plaster?
I guess so. Afghanistan or something like that.
Something that wasn't pleasant
No.
at all. Now, could you tell me a little bit about your spouse? When you met and where you're married?
That's going to take a long time. Yes,
And her name?
we met Joanne. At that time, her name was Joanne Lipke, and I met her on. I need some help on this, maybe. A New Year's Eve, we went to a dance at Midway Bar, and she was here visiting her friends Chubb and Lorraine Alberts. And Lorraine came over and said, "George, I want you to dance with. I got a lady here that wants to dance." So we danced. I come back and I said, "Boy, she's nice." My bud says, "Well, you dang fool, buy her a drink." And that started it, and that's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Well, that's good. And you've been married how long now?
57 years.
That's a record this time.
Oh, going for it, I guess.
Yeah. During that time, were there any children involved in this marriage?
Well, when I married her, she had a son, Jack, that was, 4 years old, I believe. See, she was a widow. Her husband was killed in an aircraft accident. And then we had a daughter, Kathy, was born. Boy, I need my wife to answer those dates. But we lost her when she was 12 years old in a bicycle and train accident. And her son Jack we lost when he was 50-some years old. So, but now we have, 4 grandchildren and 9 or 10 great-grandchildren. My wife's gonna.
That's okay. That's pretty close. Now, you have been a charter member of the Lions for, I believe, 56 years?
Going on 57, I guess, now.
Okay. Could you tell me a little bit about the Lions? How did they get started? I think you were instrumental in getting them started here.
Yes, we were visiting some friends of my wife's in Woodville. And at that time, the man, Don Hagan, was a president of the Woodville Club. And he had the magazine there, national magazine, that was explaining how they got started. Well, they were the same size as Withee was, as far as population. And they installed what they called a lagoon system in the sewer. And at that time, Withee didn't have no sewer system. So John Jelling and I called the state secretary of the Lions Club, and he came over, and with the help of the Thorpe Lions Club, we instrumented in getting the Withee Lions Club started. I think we had 23 members that chartered, and I think now we have 40 members. But in that period of time, they've done a lot of good for, I don't remember how many 100,000 we've raised and distributed through the local club. But it's a very good organization. They do a lot of good. I know every year they go to some little towns in Mexico and give about 10,000 pair of glasses away free. Plus, they've done a lot of good around locally. They had the own mill pond dredged and installed a aerators. We have good fishing. I just can't remember all the things, but
Now they take care of the Withee Park too, don't they?
oh yes, we built the park, all the shelters and playground equipment. We've spent a lot of money there. They just done the tennis court. The fence was heaving up so that the balls would go underneath, so they took all the poles out, reburied them, and re-cemented them and set them and put the fence up.
Now they also organize Withee Days. And what is Withee? What do we say Withee Days? What are we talking about?
Well, we have we didn't originate it. I think there was some club ahead of us, but they kind of let it go, so we picked it up. And now we have chicken dinner on Sunday and a parade. We start on Friday night with a dance, and Saturday we have girls that sell raffle tickets to be queens, and they have the queen coronation on Saturday night. Another orchestra. On Sunday after the parade, they always have polka orchestra that seems to draw a good crowd. That's one of our major money makers, besides our winter fishing contest, which really makes us a few bucks.
Now I know many of the handicap ramps around town were built by Lions Club members.
Oh yes, there's been, I don't know how many, at least 3 that I can remember.
And they give scholarships to...
Every year we give a $500 scholarship to one of the local school.
graduating seniors.
Mm-hmm.
And to other, I know you donate every year to the Withee Public Library also.
Oh yes.
And to a lot of other organizations.
And old school, we donate every year. Just
wherever there's a need, it seems like the Lions Club
yes,
is always
yes.
there to
or if
lend
any local child that can't afford their glasses, we buy glasses for them. That's one of our major projects is sight.
Yeah, they're really a good organization in this community.
They sure are.
Now, as a Lions member, have you received some awards?
Well,
I know you're very modest, but I would like you to tell me.
Melvin Jones Award, that's one of the largest awards you can, it's international. And Birch term, and I gotta read that. Birch term award. That's 2 of the local of the state of Wisconsin that originated the Lions Club many years ago.
Now, you're the only charter member that's left in the...
I guess that's right.
Now, as a rural mail carrier, you received... Now, you said a mail carrier for 35 years?
34.
34
with
years?
my service time.
Okay. And you were a church member since you were born.
Yeah.
80-some years. And you also sing in the choir.
At least 50 years, 55, I don't know, something like that.
Okay. Anything else that you can tell us about your life that you'd like to tell us? About what has happened around here?
No, I guess.
Otherwise, I'm going to ask you, what do you owe your longevity to?
Good Lord, I guess. And the local doctors. I've had a lot of heart surgeries twice.
So, just good, clean living, huh?
Well, I wouldn't say that, really. Even anybody that knows me.
What kind of advice would you give to young people today if they would listen to it?
I don't know if I should be giving young people information. Well, keep your nose clean. Stay out of trouble. Get a good education.
think that's some very, very good advice. Now, I want to thank you for participating in our oral history program, and you are a valuable part of our area history because things that you are telling us are not in history books.
Well, I probably forgot a lot too. You know, I'm 86 years old.
You've got a very good memory. So we thank you for sharing your past with us.
Well, I thank you for your interest in this too. Thank you.